folks, Quilly here, and welcome to a preview for Surviving Mars. Surviving Mars is a game being developed by Haemimont Studios, which is probably best known for their work on the Tropico series, for example. It's also published by Paradox. Surviving Mars is a base-building, colony-building game, of course, set on Mars itself. They tried to go as realistic as possible with the science, in terms of they tried to take as much science that is being discussed for possible Mars colonization, and just sort of assumed it would work, and use that as the basis for a lot of what they try to do in the game. They've got a very interesting presentation on the importance of concrete, for example. These people are serious nerds, and I love it. There's going to be a fair amount of customization in terms of your initial setup here with your mission, because the first thing you can see here, I'm scrolling through the options for mission sponsors. I chose the International Mars mission because it is the recommended one for your first playthrough, so it seems like a relatively good idea. You got a lot of money, a lot of science, and quite a few shuttles to work with, which is going to be very important. Here we've got the commander's profile, so we get some extra perks going on in here in different categories. Again, I'm mousing over everything here so that y'all can pause and take a look at all the specs. Of course, everything is very liable to change between now and release, but again, you can see a lot of differences in how the game might play over here. You can also see the difficulty bonus changes considerably at the top of the screen depending on what you choose here. So the combination of your various initial setup will lead to an overall difficulty bonus. I think I was effectively only playing on like 45% or something. But again, basically the first game. Now, I did take a look at this game at Gamescom last year. I got like a 45-minute little presentation, and in fact, in it, I brought something up about the choice of flag.
So you get to choose your different emblem for your logo?
Now, none of these looks like a Brussels sprout.
No.
Could we get that added into the game before release?
I can ask.
And as you can see, they added that into the game. So thank you very much, Susie, for that. I appreciate it. You also get to choose your mystery. I left it on random here. Mystery is sort of a late game, sort of alien, funky stuff that can go about. We'll just leave it at that for now. And here we get to choose the loadout for our very first shuttle. These are all the resources we're going to have with us on Mars itself. This includes a variety of prefab buildings, which is important because you don't actually start with the technology or the sort of capacity to build a lot of the advanced buildings on Mars itself until you develop a certain amount of tech and infrastructure. So the prefabs are very, very critical early on, and we also are going to be launching with a variety of raw materials like metal, machine parts, electronics, that sort of thing, as well as a few drones, because your shuttle acts as a drone hub. More on that mechanic a little bit later here. You get to choose your starting situation here. You can see different places are easier or harder than others. You can see the difficulty bonus at the top. You also get a breakdown of the resources as well as the various threats you can provide. If you hit the custom button, I think what you can do is you can type in a specific series of coordinates, and this acts as the seed to the random number generator, which means if you share the coordinates with someone else, they should have exactly the same starting situation as yourself.
Welcome
so here's our initial little setup. I will say the music in the game, by the way, is actually fantastic. Unfortunately, there was a bit of an issue with the recording setup at this event, in that our headset actually had a microphone that was live, so it's not usually a problem, but there are a couple of bits where some people are talking and it can pick up. So I apologize for that very much, because the sound is very nice. The game actually has like 5 or 6 different radio stations you can tune into. The default one's sort of your typical kind of science fiction ambient kind of background music, which is lovely, but some of the others are, fully just sung songs that were made special for the game, with a few different vibes in there as well. There's like a Radio Free Earth and a quantum something. They're very lovely, great musical selection in this particular game, that lots of effort put in, and I think that a lot of that was some of the contribution from Paradox, but I mean, you got that like Grand Theft Auto kind of style radio station. Anyway, enough about the radio stations. Hey, technology. So research is a thing in the game. Based on your sponsor, you'll get a certain amount of tech points sort of passively coming in. There's other things you can do to get more tech points, like set up research labs and whatnot. At the start, you don't have access to a lot of the research. You actually have to explore around Mars, discover some anomalies, and this is one of the mechanics that they use to sort of unlock more research options as you go forward. And as far as I understand, the order that you'll unlock things will be randomized, so each experience will be a wee bit different here. So this is the initial setup. The shuttle has landed. It's got a few drones going out, and I'm setting up a little bit of construction to work. I've got a solar panel and some power cables and our first cement mine. Well, I don't know if mine is exactly right. It's scraping off some of the type of mineral or I don't know, rocky substance on the top in this patch and making concrete blocks out of it that we will use as our base for construction. Your drones can use various metal deposits that might be on the surface of Mars to quick start things, which is what they were doing here, but mostly they're going to rely pretty heavily on the stuff that you brought with you with your shuttle. Now, one of the things that I have sort of figured out a lot more at this point about the game is that you really want to work your initial shuttles. If you've got a sponsor that's got more than one shuttle and it's got a fair amount of cash to support you, like the International Mars Agency, which I used here, send an extra shuttle as early as possible with more prefabs, with a bunch of metal, because metal mining is actually quite hard to get started in surviving Mars. You need to have people working it. Apparently you can get sort of drone operated metal mines later, but at the start you can't. Concrete, yes, but metal, no. So sending more as quickly as possible on another shuttle is great. The sponsor I chose actually has access to 5 shuttles, and when the shuttles are on the surface of Mars, they will actually slowly refuel themselves, but it's very, very, very slow. Later on, you're really going to need your own fuel production thing, but ultimately, at some point, you'll have emptied the shuttle and refilled it with fuel, and then you can send it back to Earth, and the round trip does take a while, but you can then go and load up more stuff, assuming your sponsor still has some money. And there are a few ways to add more money. Money is not a thing on Mars itself. Hey, they don't call it the red planet for nothing. Sorry. But the other stuff is, but the money is still quite important because you can use it to accelerate your build a lot by sending you some extra stuff from Earth over here. So here I am trying to expand. We're getting some oxygen, some moisture evaporators. I'm getting ready to set up my first colony dome so that we can get some people over here. Because ultimately, people are what's going to allow you to grow your colony quite a bit by doing more research, by working some extra resources. And I mean, the whole point of the game is to get more folks over here on Mars. Our initial dome is a fairly small one, and it's not going to be able to host that many people and supply them with all the services they need to stay sane and do a little bit of work. But, it's just enough to do a little bit of everything. And later on, you're going to get, I think they said there was something like 5 different sizes of domes overall that you start to unlock, and they can get really huge. So here I am trying to place it. Takes a lot of material to produce that. Now, I did make a mistake with the first dome placement over here. I didn't realize that for the metal mines, you do have to have a person working the metal mine. You can see there's a metal resource icon just on the north side of the base when I'm back here. Here I'm sending myself my first shuttle over here. You can see available rockets. I got 4 or 5 because one's on Mars itself. So I've got money and I've got a certain amount of cargo capacity for each one. So I'm bringing a variety of prefab buildings so that I can just plop them down. They still take a second for your drones to go out and actually set them up, but they build very quickly and they don't need any other material. It's also quite nice to have a few drones packaged with each shuttle because each shuttle does act as a drone hub. And the drones are the little AI robots that are going around building things for you, but they can only operate within a certain range of a drone hub. And this is a little bit later, and I am landing another shuttle here. Actually, to the left of the screen, you can see another shuttle had landed here. So this is my third one. This is at the point where I'm like, oh, I need to send more shuttles with more metals and stuff. But yeah, there's a little red kind of brick icon just on the north side of my base there. That's the metal deposit, but it's out of range of the habitat dome, so we're not actually going to be able to mine that one. So that was a bit of a mistake there, which I discover once I try to set things up. But so this dome over here mostly becomes a research dome. I build some research labs in there because, well, they're not going to be miners, and that's okay. Then we'll have to just expand somewhere else. But that's why it became even more important that I sent my shuttles down here. So those are living quarters. That one's got a capacity, I think, something like 14 people or something like that. And so you put them in these slices. You can rotate these buildings to fit into different slices of your habitat dome, and some of the buildings are quite a bit smaller as well. Now, so in addition to the living space, and you can get bigger apartment buildings and things later on that have got more capacity, in addition to that, you've got a variety of buildings that provide various services. When you mouse over these, it'll say something like, so the grocery satisfies the food need and also the shopping need of your people, for example. The nursery is a bit different. Nursery is where kids live. It's a smaller building, so it's fairly space efficient. It also encourages your people to have children. Now, they can only have children if you provide them a certain amount of necessities and comfort. Otherwise, they're not going to do it. But if you've got a fairly established dome, people may in fact have kids. All the citizens, when they arrive, you'll see I'll click on some. They've got their own individual age, their own individual traits and specializations, and so on and so forth. So here, the tech tree, it's starting to fill out a scooch here. I'm working on soil adaptation, which does let you build a farm within a dome. I hadn't realized that you do actually already have access from the start to hydroponics, but it was in a different category. It wasn't with the other dome slices, it was in the life support category. So I thought I had to research farming to be able to produce food, but I was wrong about that. Here I am, trying to send over my first rocket of passengers. The rocket has a capacity of 12 people, and you can filter on the traits over here. You can see the matching colonists. It says 83 of 129 there. So 129 people are willing to come to Mars right now. Based on my filters, only 83 match. It does remind you about your residences available on Mars. And you can send people even if you don't have the room yet. You do get a warning about it, which is great. People have traits, flaws, perks, age group specializations, and what you could do, like, in fact, I think I don't show it in this particular thing, but you could, like, thumbs down every single flaw, for example, and you might still get some colonists. And in fact, my first shuttle load will end up, I think, in the end. I might be wrong. This one, maybe my second one, actually thumbs down all the flaws, and I still have 12 people available for a full rocket load, which is pretty good for that. So the rockets also come with a certain amount of food by themselves. You can see here, 12 passengers, 120 food. So it does help with your initial setup to have a little bit of food kick-started here, especially since I don't have farming set up. And again, I didn't realize, yeah, you can see here the hydroponics. I'm like, oh, there it is. But oh well, I have the farm now. Farms are considerably more efficient. They're a little bit bigger. The hydroponics, you can fit 3 of them in one of those pie slices, but the farm is way more effective for producing food. It also doesn't use power, and so on and so forth. So I do get my first load of people before I have a farm down, although you need people to work the farm, so that's why it's important for your shuttle to bring some food. It's like, okay, bring some food, get down here, and then start growing your potatoes, because apparently that's how you survive on Mars. You actually have a choice of quite a few crops. At the start, you have access to, I want to say, wheat, potatoes, and soybean. I think potatoes provide the most amount of food per farm plot, but I think they lower the soil quality. Soybeans don't produce as much food, but I think increase the soil capacity, and wheat, assuming I'm remembering the right one, wheat is sort of neutral in the middle, doesn't change the soil quality. So depending on your setup, one of the nice things to do is to produce like several back-to-back things of soybeans, raise the soil quality, and then switch to something that's consistent, or maybe alternate between potatoes and soy. But there's a lot of technology to unlock quite a few different crops. Native Martian ones that just work a lot better on Mars. You can build fungi farms actually outside of your domes. You can develop farming setups where the plants are not really there for food, but instead produce a lot of oxygen, so the oxygen requirements for your domes drop down quite a bit more, and so on and so forth. You can see me looking at the various buildings over here, which will satisfy different needs for my colonists, because I, wanted to keep them vaguely happy, if at all possible. There's a space bar. It's a very large building, because again, this is the smallest dome, so the buildings do start to take up a lot of space. Now you can see I'm clicking on a few people. You can see their age and specialization and their workplace and all their traits and things like that. And you do have this founder stage going on, so for 10 souls, you need to keep them going. A soul, technically, is a day on the planet, but each day in here represents quite a bit more time, like weeks or months or something like that, in sort of an abstracted sense. There I go, taking off one of my shuttles. Again, the shuttles do seem to have a built-in fuel converter on them, so they do extract some resources from the surface. I think what the idea in the game is you're splitting underground ice into hydrogen and using that to develop your fuel there. So they do slowly refuel themselves, but you will want a fuel generator. Here I'm trying to expand to a slightly new area, get a bit more concrete, because you do wear these patches soon. And ultimately, I'm trying to stretch out more and more. Starvation! There's one spot, because, the starvation is because our first farm cycle hadn't completed yet, I'm pretty sure. There's one spot that I'd found with some actual underwater, or underground, like a big water reserve. All of my water production right now is from a vaporator that's just trying to grab a little bit out of the thin Martian oxygen. But I'm trying to expand to a water area here, and having to go around a mountain. I hadn't discovered the fact that there is actually a tunnel system in the game that makes it easy to expand from one area to another. So we're going to get a big spaghetti line of power cables and water pipes to reach the new area. But we're getting there. Again, the shuttles, you can ship them with some drones in them, and then they do act as a local drone hub. So they're actually really great to expand your sort of colony, because you can drop a shuttle a fair bit further away and start to set things up. The way the underground tunnels work is you don't actually have to path out the whole tunnel. You basically just build the entrances, right? So I put one tunnel entrance here and one tunnel entrance here, and the connection between them is abstracted. But it is possible for you to drive some of your rovers through there to go from one to the other. But the other thing it does is it connects power and oxygen and water connections from 2 different places in your base. It's actually really important in some of the maps, not this one that I loaded up here, but some of the maps have multiple like levels. You actually can't get from one spot of the map to another because there's like a cliff cutting it in half, so you have to build those tunnels to kind of connect 2 distant areas of your bases as one larger area of the base. So you can do that, yeah, just drop a shuttle, make sure it's got enough material, and at least one drone, probably you want more than one, and then have that build a tunnel, and then all of a sudden things are connected up. Now, I haven't talked about the goods in the base yet. There are little stockpiles you can plop down. There's a variety of different resources: metal, concrete, food, rare metals, polymers, electronics, a couple others, I think. Oh, machine parts, and also fuel. And those get stored in just little flat stockpile places, just out and about anywhere. Those stockpiles don't actually take resources to build, so you can just plop them down wherever, and you're just telling your drones, here, put things there. You can have a universal one, which has room for a little bit of everything. But it's actually set up fairly smartly where, like, if you're mass producing concrete, it won't fill the entire universal storage with concrete. Like, there's only, 1/8 of the universal storage for each individual resource. So you can have dedicated ones. Now, if you need, let's say you're building up a new area and you need metal for some buildings over there, how do you get it to a new area? Well, your default setup does start you off with one transport rover. And your transport rover, what you can do is you can click on one stockpile and tell it to grab resources of a particular type, so it's going to fill its inventory with, say, metal, and then you can then click on another stockpile and tell it to dump its resources over there. It's a mostly manual process early on in the game. Like these rovers, you're doing that. You can set up sort of an automated thing where it will continuously grab things from one spot and continuously drop it off at the other, as long as there's resources / space. It'll just keep going forever until its battery runs dry and you recharge it. But it's still, like, you can't set up sort of complicated or intelligent sort of shipping transport routes with the RC transport. The solution to that, and one of the advantages to my setup, is actually started with this technology from the start. Not everyone did, but I didn't realize I did for the longest time, is a shuttle hub. A shuttle hub is fan-frickin-tastic, and it's how you make these larger bases with, resources being produced all over the place much more manageable. Shuttles are automated flying drones that automatically move resources around. So grabbing them from places where there's some resources just lying around doing nothing, and bring them to places where there's a specific need for the resources. And it happens automatically and intelligently, and it's incredible. The only downside to the shuttles is they do require fuel to operate. So you have to get your fuel production setup up before you can get the shuttle hub. And depending on your setup, you might need to unlock a technology so you can do it. But again, I did start with that technology. So as soon as one of the devs came by, and I was like, man, this is really awkward moving things around. They're like, build a shuttle hub. Oh, as soon as I did that, like, everything was amazing and made this sort of expansion much, much easier. So keep your eyes open. Very soon I'll have built it, and you'll see some little flying drones buzzing around here. There's some more rockets coming down, some more shuttles coming down to deliver some more goods so I can set up this dome. This dome here is in range of 2 separate metal mines, so it's going to be my primary source of getting metal on the planet over here, so I won't have to ship any of that anymore. And then assuming I'm able to then set up our machine parts fabrication and whatnot, which I have some prefab parts for that already, then we'll be able to convert the metal and concrete into all the parts that I'm going to need locally on Mars. And the only thing we'll have to ship from Earth will be more colonists. And while our current dome, has a population cap of, what was it, 14 or 6? I think it's 14 in the low-level housing. I think it might be 24 in an apartment. Maybe you could fit a couple of those in one dome, which means one dome, one of this size, sort of has a soft population cap of about 50. I mean, you could probably put more in there, but you'd have a hard time getting all the resources in there. People do not travel from one dome to another to do their shopping, for example. You don't have to have farming in every dome, though, because you could have your shuttle hub move the food from one place to another. Assuming you've got a grocery store in your dome, then your shuttle hub will automatically bring the resources to your dome. So that could save a little bit of space. But ultimately, each dome has to be mostly self-sufficient, ignoring the food aspect of it. So the smaller ones really do have a fairly intense population cap, but the larger ones, you can fit apparently like hundreds of people in there. So you're talking about your colonies can get very big population. I think they had a save ready for me on this computer. I could have loaded up with like a couple of thousand people in the colony, for example. So So they can get pretty darned large, as long as you keep babysitting your oxygen and power and water. Then that's going to be important. Here's some more people dropping off onto the planet here, and again some more traits. There are more efficient technologies that you unlock for things like water and power and so on. Some of them are options like it's the same building, but you can upgrade the building. It'll use more power but produce more resources, for example. So all those people will settle in there, and they will start mining my local metals, which is great and grand. Makes me so happy. Here I'm setting up, I think, a series of vaporators. Yeah, they do have like an area you don't want to overlap them for more efficiency here, so I'm sort of spreading them out along this connection, which was made to reach my site where the metal mines were and where the water is. Again, if I'd sort of figured out the underground tunnels at this point, I may have not needed to build all that stuff, but it is a convenient place to load up all of our people. And the same thing here, I'm driving a bunch of power out here, but at this point, and you can see the shuttles going by, shortly after this is when I discovered the underground tunnel, so I don't actually have to pipe any water or oxygen over here. I got a pop-up for the first death in our colony, but this was actually a death from old age. I think because I had removed the age filter at some point. I got some senior citizens on one of my deliveries of people, and they, one of them just died of old age. So I was really worried. I'm like, oh, how did I kill someone? Nope, it's fine. They died for perfectly okay things. You can see a list of milestones here. You can see here that milestone for 1,000 colonists, and that's not a hard cap. If there is a hard cap on the actual number of people, I don't know what it is, but I think in practice it's going to be more of a soft cap than anything else in terms of like, wow, it is hard to maintain more people than this and produce all the power. And at some point, you're really going to start to encounter mysteries. Now, this anomaly that's on the screen here, I don't know if this is just, a random event from one of the anomalies I researched, or if it's the precursor to one of the mysteries. But, my Explorer rover, which I am manually moving around from time to time to explore these anomalies, it got some sort of power feedback from an anomaly. And why would there be an electrical feedback thing on Mars? So I suspect it's the start of some sort of mystery event, but I didn't want to delve too much into it because I knew I wouldn't have enough time to finish, and I kind of wanted to save it for a proper Let's Play. If at all there. So the texture is filling out. It actually scrolls a little bit to the right as well. So I don't know how many texts are in each individual category. I suspect it's probably like 14 or 15 or something like that. And since there are 5 categories, that's a lot. There's also that breakthrough level, which there was a tech there that I got. It unlocked from one of the anomalies, so I don't know how randomized that is. There's a lot of questions we still have for some of the technology and how that progresses and what they all mean. There's a rare metals deposit over there. That's one of the ways I believe you can make money. I don't know if you use the rare metals on Mars itself. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. Oh, here I found like just a pretty area that means that my next I'll have a celebrity applicant available on Earth. Apparently they just sort of passively make money for you, which is cool. But yeah, the rare metals, you can load them onto a shuttle. In fact, they get loaded onto shuttles by default automatically by your drones, and then when you launch your shuttle back to Earth, the rare metals will be turned in for money, and that gives you more funding at your for your particular sponsor, for your particular agency. So here I'm going to search through, I think it was under perks that they were a celebrity. And I think the idea is that they'll passively give you money. What's interesting, you'll see at the bottom of the screen when I'm playing, there's a bunch of things like pinned down there. You can pin or unpin any building or drone or even a person in the game if you want. And I think by default, when the celebrity landed, they were pinned, so you can sort of like monitor them, which is kind of interesting. So if you've got a favorite person, I wonder if you can rename people. You can rename domes. I renamed my first one to Belgium. I wonder if you can rename people. I didn't actually try. So name one after yourself and then follow that person around and hope they don't die. Yeah. Anyway, I really enjoyed my time with this game. We got about 3 hours to play, and I am very excited to get my hands on the code itself. There's info in the doobly-doo in terms of release date and price and everything, and you can definitely expect some more content of this on my channel in the future. Thanks for watching. See you next time.